Count on LEX 18 News.
After months of delay and anticipation, the day is finally here. The Run for the Roses, the 146th Kentucky Derby. Also, we're going to take a look at protests planned to take place outside of Churchill Downs this weekend. And Kanye West has officially secured a spot on Kentucky's presidential ballot. LEX 18 News at Sunrise Weekends begins right now. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on this very special Saturday, September 5th, 2020. I'm Chris Goodman. Claire Kopsky will be joining us shortly, along with Claire Crouch. On this very special day, you want to talk about a jam-packed weekend. Oaks Day, Derby Day, and Labor Day all packed into this holiday weekend, and the weather is looking about perfect. Meteorologist Seth Phillips joins us now with a look at the forecast. Seth, good morning to you. Happy Derby Day.
Happy Derby Day, yeah, that has really been the kind of moniker we're placing on the forecast this weekend, as it does not get any better than this. Not only do we have the sunshine, if you remember, the last 4 or 5 derbies have been nothing but cloud coverage or rain, especially right around race time. Today, doesn't matter what race or what time anybody's out there or anybody's out doing anything this weekend, it's going to be wonderful. Plenty of sunshine, low humidity, and temperatures that are going to be pretty perfect, right around the low 80s. Now, if you're in Louisville, if you happen to be around there for Derby or at least in the area, temperatures will be a little warmer, but regardless, it will still be a wonderful day. Going into tonight's forecast, in the upper 50s, going to be nice and pleasant, mild and comfortable night for sure. But as we go throughout Labor Day, it just pretty much stays the same. We'll kind of bump those temperatures up a little bit more. Getting throughout the week upcoming, things stay a little bit warm. Now, after that point, though, we are expecting to get back to a little rain, a little thunderstorm activity towards the end of the week. And then eventually, we'll start to see another round of nice fall-like weather. We'll, of course, talk all about this and what to expect coming up in your full forecast.
All right, Seth, 6:02. And normally on Derby Day, Claire and myself and just about everybody that works at LEX 18 would be at Churchill Downs for the big day. But we certainly know by now this is no normal year. Kentucky Derby Day has been postponed to today because of the coronavirus pandemic, and no fans are allowed. And a very limited number of our staff is even allowed inside the gates of Churchill Downs. Claire Crouch is one of the lucky few who get to be at the historic racetrack this morning, as we're just hours away from Derby 146. Claire, it's normally quiet about this time of the morning anyway, but this morning, I'll bet it's even more quiet.
Chris, good morning. First of all, happy Derby Day. This is so weird. It is truly unlike any other Derby Day I've experienced. First of all, you and I are normally together. We're usually all dressed up in our hats. I've had a spray tan. That's usually the theme of the day. But of course, this year is much different. And yes, it is very, very, very quiet. As you can see, we're actually not even inside the gates right now. Security this year, much different as well, due to a number of reasons. Of course, COVID-19 and also some pending planned protests. But of course, lots of big differences. I don't have a hat on. The trend, the feel, mainly among all the people who've been here, which is mainly media and horse people, is a little more casual, a little more dressed down. Clearly, we've got a mask on. And yes, the weather's actually phenomenal. So that might be the biggest difference of all for those of us who have been out here for the last several years, is we're not dealing with pouring down rain. But regardless of all the changes, we are still planning a full day of coverage here at Churchill Downs. And in fact, right now, we've got our very own Claire Kopsky here with us outside of Churchill Downs this morning. She's been very busy doing a lot of work digging into the history of recent Kentucky Derbies, including something really interesting that maybe a lot of people don't even think about, and that's the involvement historically of black jockeys in the Kentucky Derby.
Yes, well, and it's been really interesting to take a look back. Spent a lot of time inside the Kentucky Derby Museum, which is actually here at Churchill Downs, looking at some of the very early races, the very first Kentucky Derby, and also leading up to more recent races where we saw a lot more black jockeys participating in the races. Actually, the first race, which was in 1875, 13 of the 15 jockeys that raced were black jockeys, and as we know, very different on the track today. Now, in that first race, which again, 1875, the jockey who rode the winning horse in that first Derby is a name that you probably recognize if you live or have spent time in Lexington. His name was Oliver Lewis. In Lexington, the road Oliver Lewis Way was named after him, and he was also buried in Lexington. So definitely he has some bluegrass roots. But after he won the first Derby, black jockeys went on to win 15 of the first 28 runnings of the Kentucky Derby. A couple of decades later, though, the industry changed as our country's heart sadly also changed. And the Derby Museum's Director of Curatorial and Educational Affairs has a further explanation on that change of thought.
Jim Crow and segregation really impact African American jockeys adversely. The same discrimination they were facing in everyday life, they were also facing on the racetrack. So African American jockeys are very prominent through the first 25, 27 years of the Kentucky Derby. But you turn to the 20th century, more urban lifestyle in America. Racing is a sport that many people are really absorbing in their leisure time. It's very popular, it can be very lucrative. So African American jockeys, their white counterparts, become more interested.
And Chris also explained that discrimination permeated onto the track as rough riding tactics took place between jockeys, which made it difficult for trainers to decide who they were going to choose to ride, because oftentimes they didn't want to choose that black jockey for fear that that would mess up the horse on the track. Chris also said that administratively it was hard because some of the organizing bodies wouldn't allow black jockeys to even get a license to race. So a lot of challenges.
Yeah, very interesting. So when was the last time a black jockey actually won the Kentucky Derby?
No, the answer to this is actually very telling because it's been more than 100 years. 1902, Jimmy Wingfield was the last one to win. And actually it's been almost 10 years since we've even seen a black jockey ride a horse during the Kentucky Derby. And in the next half hour, we're going to look more into this history and also look into the diversity that we're going to see today on the track.
So interesting, Claire. Thanks so much for sharing that with us, because there's so much history involved in the Kentucky Derby, as we know, but this is a piece that's really not talked about, maybe even forgotten in a lot of ways. So it's super interesting and really happy to have these new nuggets of knowledge about the Kentucky Derby in my brain now.
Yes, so much is always placed on the horses, right?
Yeah.
But there's someone who's riding them.
Yes,
So.
yeah. Wonderful. We'll be looking forward to the next report coming up in our next half hour. And we've, of course, got lots more all day long here from Churchill Downs. So hope you'll stick with us for this very unique Derby day. No matter what happens, it's going to be an historic weekend. We already had a really exciting Oaks race yesterday, so that set the tone for what we're going to see on the track. And of course, there's lots of other events surrounding this day that are sure to be talked about for years to come. But for now, from Churchill Downs, for Claire Kopsky, I'm Claire Crouch. Chris, back to you.
The two Claires, thank you very much. 6:07 now in the 146th running of the Kentucky Oaks has already brought some surprises to kick off this year's Derby weekend. On Ladies' Day, there were two favorites going into the Oaks race, Kenny McPeek's Swiss Skydiver and Gamine. But to everyone's surprise, neither filly took the post. It was She Dares the Devil, running up between the pair to a long shot victory at 15-1 odds. Swiss Skydiver and Gamine would finish second and third, respectively. Now, post time for the Kentucky Derby set for 7:01 tonight. We will have live exclusive coverage from noon until 2:30 right here on LEX 18 before NBC takes over for the main event. After the race, we will not be on air, but be sure to stream our live special coverage. After NBC's coverage of the Derby, we're going to have a wrap of the day's events from about 7:30 to 8. You can watch on several online and streaming platforms, LEX18.com, the LEX18 Facebook page, Roku, Amazon Fire, Android TV, and Apple TV. And though no fans will be allowed into the stands of Churchill Downs for the Kentucky Derby, protesters will be present just outside the track demanding justice for Breonna Taylor. LEX 18's Sophia Millar breaks it all down for us in this continuing coverage.
While fans cheered She Dares the Devil from their homes, protesters marched in Louisville Friday night. Activists are calling for the Kentucky Derby to be canceled, saying the event shouldn't continue while the officers involved in 26-year-old Breonna Taylor's shooting death have not been charged.
We're tired of what we are seeing here in Louisville, Kentucky. It seems as though everyone wants us to move on. And what black people are saying, what our allies are saying, is that we will not move on. We want justice for Breonna Taylor. We want those officers indicted. We want the mayor to have accountability. We want there to be exposure that there have been 100 days of protesting. The first 2 days were difficult days. 98 days have been peaceful. All of the talk of looting, all of the talk of rioting, all of the talk of violence, it has not happened. And yet, we're here today, and there are military tanks, armored vehicles behind me. There is a ridiculous fencing system.
The 146th Kentucky Oats took place as protesters marked 100 nights of marching against racial injustice. Louisville Metro Police presence was heavily noted throughout the night. Assistant Chief of Police Levita Chavos says the safety measures seen at the track are taken every year.
We do intend to not intervene with lawful protests that are not violent.
Another protest is planned for tonight, and organizers say they'll continue until there is justice. Sophia Millar, LEX 18 News.
Coming up on 6/11, back here in Lexington, officials responded to an overnight fire at a business right near UK's campus. That fire broke out at Off the Hookah Lounge about 4 o'clock this morning. According to witnesses, flames were shooting out of the top of the building as the fire started. When we arrived at the scene, the top of the building was still smoking. So far, we have no word on any injuries or what caused that fire. Rapper Kanye West will now be appearing on the presidential ballot in Kentucky this November. Secretary of State Michael Adams confirming the news to LEX 18 shortly after. He tweeted a picture of West's filing papers with just a one-word caption, "Yep." On Wednesday, Adams announced that President Trump and Joe Biden had been certified for the ballot on November 3rd. He went on to quip, quote, "If Kanye West drops by for a picture with the Secretary of State, we'll let you know." Yesterday, representatives for West's campaign delivered the paperwork with 19,000 signatures to get West on the ballot. The filing comes amid skepticism over the authenticity of petition signatures he's filed in other states. The Secretary of State tells us so far no red flags have been raised.
5,000. They didn't see Mickey Mouse, Bernie Sanders on there. So on its face, if it appears to be in order, we have to accept it, and we do. We do that for any candidate of any party filing for any office.
Adams says it's not his office's job to verify each signature for a petition, and that it would be the burden of West's opponents or registered voters to file a legal challenge if there was a flaw. Even if West remains on the ballot, Kentucky is just one of 11 states to certify him as a candidate. All right, coming up on 6:13, as we mentioned, post time for Kentucky Derby 146 is just after 7 tonight, and wouldn't you know it, after several years of rainy derbies, it is going to be beautiful, Seth, when no one can be there.
You know, and if you remember back in February when we were supposed to have Derby before it got changed, we also had a really nice weather weekend. So unfortunately, that's just the way it works out. But I guarantee you, you are going to want to get outside and enjoy the weather this weekend, all weekend, even going into Labor Day. Things will look nice. We'll talk about why and what's to come after in your full forecast after the break. So as we go for Derby, things looking great for today. If you're going to be out and about before watching the race, you have ample opportunity to get out and do it. Plenty of sunshine all day today. Now, that being said, we do have some fog to contend with, especially in the southeastern river valleys, but you do have some all the way out towards Lake Cumberland. Some pretty low visibility numbers early this morning. Of course, you get outside of the towns, you might have some of that on the roadways as well. So just watch out for that. Otherwise, the fog will lift, the sun will come out for everyone, and then it's just going to be a sunny day all day today. No rain. In fact, the closest rain that we have to us at the moment, over 280 miles away up in Michigan at this point, with a few light showers with a warm front going up that way. A lot of thunderstorm activity off the coast of Texas, but also some rain showers mostly in northern Louisiana and southern Arkansas. We're kind of in an up and down motion with the jet stream. That's what's bringing us the cooler air. As you see, the jet stream starts to sag a little further south. But then out in the west, they're dealing with intense high pressure with well above normal temperatures, a lot of fire weather out that way. But that's going to change in a big way as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first, let's look at the future track, at least in the pattern aspect, and talk about what's going to be happening. High pressure with us. System that's moving through the Great Lakes going to basically wash out. But then we have another one that's going to dive south throughout the early part of the week. That's going to be our next almost chance for rain. I don't think much comes out of it. It's because of the fact that this high pressure is going to be so strong that this front will practically wash out as it moves closer to us. So we might see a little increased moisture. The humidity will start to go up a little bit more by the early part of the week. Maybe a few more clouds, but as far as the rain aspect, that's not going to be a factor, really. The next best chance for rain doesn't get here until the end of the week. So we got a while to go with this nice weather in effect. A little bit of a front. That was that first system that's washing out. The second one is going to bring in a little bit more cloud coverage by about Monday afternoon before things start to get a little bit more summery in the forecast, especially by the middle part of the week. But this is what's happening in the big picture. If you look at the entire country, 10 to 25 degrees above normal for the Rockies, for the Cascades, and everything in between, the high desert, really dealing with some fire conditions over the next several days. But then 10 to 35 degrees below normal, dropping down from Canada. Really, this is going to be a huge relief from temperatures, but it's also going to cause a few areas to go from record-setting heat to record-setting cold in just a matter of days. Remember, this is Wednesday, so from the weekend, 3 or 4 days out, dropping temperatures dramatically. We're going to warm up a little bit, but then that cold air starting to punch east. Now, it will moderate before it gets to us, 5 to 10 degrees below normal as we're getting into next weekend. Regardless, though, to go from intense record heat to record cold, a little snow happening in the Rockies over the middle of the week upcoming, that is very interesting in the weather department. What's also interesting is the fact that we have not had a sunny derby in at least 5 years. We'll get it this year with all the sunshine over the weekend. Labor Day looking wonderful. It will be warmer. We'll keep that warmth going to the middle of the week before we start to cool down after our big cold front by Friday.
Welcome back, 621. You probably think of banking fees as a small and inconvenient and necessary evil, but as it turns out, they're neither. We have some advice this morning on how you can reduce or eliminate the fees you pay to the bank. Stacey Johnson has more.
You've got to have insurance, and other than shop around for the best deal, there's not much you can do to influence that bill. Or is there? As it turns out, there are specific things that go into every homeowner's policy that control how much it costs. Now, some of these things you can influence, some you can't, but it pays to know what they are. Let's start with the obvious ones. First and most obvious, the amount you carry and the number of claims you file. Even if something's not your fault, claims can increase your cost or even get you dropped. Another obvious factor, where you live. Want to live in a hurricane zone or near the water? You know it's going to cost you. Ditto with things like trampolines and pools. Risky stuff means higher rates. And you probably wouldn't be surprised to learn that high crime areas are also more expensive. Okay, so much for the stuff you probably already knew. How about some factors now that might be a little more surprising? Did you know your credit score can affect your rates? Not all companies consider it and not all states allow it, but it does happen. Next, where's the fire? House, that is. The closer you are to a fire station and fire hydrant, the less you'll pay. Did you think about your homeowner's coverage before you got your dog? Some insurers will drop you for having the wrong breed. How about working from home? Even that can cost you. Bottom line, there are lots of factors that go into your insurance rates. Some you can control, some you can't. But it certainly pays to understand them and to shop around. How about some links and more info that can help you reduce all your insurance rates? No problem. Just go to moneytalksnews.com and do a search for insurance. For Money Talks News, I'm Stacey Johnson.
623 now. Coming up next, as developers create apps to help in the fight against the coronavirus, a common tool that they use is contact tracing. But what happens when public trust stops those apps from being effective? We've got that coming up here in just a minute. First, a look at lottery jackpots this weekend. Tuesday's Mega Millions jackpot, $97 million, and tonight's Powerball drawing is worth $66 million. We'll be right back.
LEX 18 Sunrise Weekend.
626. Now, what if your smartphone was able to tell you when you've spent time near someone contagious with coronavirus? The technology is already available in much of the world and now a growing number of states. But as Newsy's Patrick Terpstra discovered, the new contact tracing apps are missing something key: public trust.
Virginia is proud to launch a new digital app called COVID Wise.
Virginia became the first state to offer an app with technology built by Apple and Google to automatically alert people who come near someone positive for coronavirus.
This can really help us catch new cases early.
Yet a month later, we found the free app only knows about a tiny fraction of virus cases in Virginia. The problem isn't technical, it's human.
We have the utmost confidence that the app is doing exactly what it's intended to do. So the question becomes, are citizens, willing to do their part?
Exposure notification apps send Bluetooth signals alerting your phone when you've spent at least 15 minutes fewer than 6 feet away from someone who also has the app and COVID.
That way the individual can really, take it upon themselves to decide, do I need to watch my symptoms? Do I need to contact someone? Should I get tested?
Here is the challenge. In order for this technology to protect privacy, it requires that an infected person upload their own diagnosis into their phones. What we found is that while people are downloading these apps, they're not telling them when they get the virus.
It's not an easy sell, and we didn't expect it to be from day one.
Data we got from Virginia show almost 500,000 downloads of the COVID-Wise app since early August, but only 78 times has anyone in Virginia ever reported a positive case of COVID to the app. That's despite thousands of new infections each week in the state. Alabama is testing a similar platform. 42,000 people downloaded its Guide Safe COVID app, but just 46 reports of positive cases. Health officials say unfounded privacy concerns are keeping people off the apps.
I mean, this just reeks of like that 1984 Big Brother type of thing.
Memories of personal data security breaches over the years, some involving Apple and Google, may be cooling people to the idea of putting health information into their phones. But the two companies say the facts are everyone using these COVID apps is kept anonymous. Infected cases are reported by code, not name, and because the system relies on Bluetooth, it doesn't need or use GPS.
It doesn't track your location. It doesn't give out personal information.
Swiss developer Jim Laris says the security settings are much tighter than for many of the other apps and games on your phone.
This is the hard part of the whole situation, is that the technology is there, the technology works, the technology is pretty simple, but people.
Switzerland has been using the alerts since June and also struggles to get people to use them. Only 10 to 20% of Swiss infections are being shared with the country's app, though that's far more than in Virginia.
What I would say to the states is keep at it.
Virginia plans to soon use billboards and PSAs to boost COVID-Wise.
The more people who choose to do that, I think the better off we're going to be.
A tool designed to protect your privacy and your life. Patrick Terpstra, Newsy, Washington.